You woke up once again thinking about the money you don't have. You checked your bank account before even brushing your teeth. You dreamed of a different life, but when you look around, you see the same old limitations. And the worst part is that you know you have potential. You know you deserve more, but something invisible keeps holding you back in the same place. I am Solomon, the man who had enough gold to make an entire nation prosper, who built palaces that shone like stars on earth, who knew wealth on a scale your mind can barely imagine. But I was also the man who discovered that having everything and not knowing how to use it is the cruelest prison that exists. You don't just need more money. You need a mind that knows how to attract, multiply, and maintain wealth. You need to become the kind of person who not only achieves prosperity, but lives in peace with it. Someone who understands that wealth without wisdom is postponed destruction. Today, I'm going to give you the 7 laws that governed my fortune. These aren't tricks or magic formulas. They're principles I tested with my own life, with my own gold, with my own mistakes. Laws that transformed a young king into a legend of prosperity that echoes to this day. But listen carefully. These words aren't for those who just want to dream about wealth. They're for those ready to transform into the kind of person who deserves to have it. For those who understand that the problem isn't in the circumstances out there, but in the mindset in here. If you feel it's time to stop fighting against money and start dancing with it, subscribe to this channel now. Because what you're about to discover in the next few minutes could be the difference between continuing to survive and finally starting to truly prosper. Law 1. The law of profitable silence. You talk too much. I know because I used to talk too much too. In meetings, you feel the need to prove you understand. In conversations about money, you explain your plans before you've even tested them. On social media, you share every thought as if it were a revelation. And deep down, very deep down, you know this compulsion to speak is costing you dearly. It's revealing your cards too early. It's scaring away opportunities that were coming your way. The first law of wealth I discovered wasn't about investment or strategy. It was about shutting up. Silence isn't the absence of power. It's the concentration of power. When you stop pouring your ideas into thin air, they start fermenting inside you. When you stop explaining your dreams to people who can't make them happen, they gain real strength. Wisdom whispers, and those who talk too much can't hear. Imagine a deep well in the desert. The purest water is at the bottom, crystal clear and cold. But if you constantly stir the surface, if you agitate the sand in haste, the water becomes murky and you can't see the treasure that's down there. Your mind is that well. And every unnecessary word you speak is a stone thrown at the surface. The gold of intuition, the diamond of the right strategy, the pearl of the perfect opportunity. All of this is inside you. But you can't see it because you won't stop making noise. I learned this the most painful way possible. When I was young, I had all the answers. I spoke before thinking, decided before observing. And then, in a dawn of forced silence, when I was alone in my royal chamber, with no advisors to impress or subjects to convince, I heard for the first time the voice that would change everything. It wasn't an external voice. It was the clarity that's born when you finally silence the internal storm. God offered me anything I asked for. Anything. Infinite wealth, eternal fame, absolute power. And you know what happened? For the first time in my life, I didn't know what to say. The silence forced me to look inward, to ask not what I wanted, but what I truly needed. And it was in that silence that the smartest request of my life was born: wisdom. I didn't ask for gold. I asked for the ability to recognize it. I didn't ask for wealth. I asked for the mindset that attracts it. And here's the turning point you need to understand. Wealth doesn't come to those who talk about it. It comes to those who observe it in silence. The richest merchant in town isn't the one shouting his prices in the market square. It's the one who stays quiet, observes market movement, understands customer rhythm, and speaks only when he has something valuable to offer. The most prosperous investor isn't the one who opines most about stocks. It's the one who studies in silence, analyzes without haste, and acts only when certain. You want to know why your financial life isn't taking off? Because you're spending your mental energy talking instead of observing. You explain your strategies to people who have never had financial success. You ask advice from people in the same situation as you. You talk about your dreams to people who have no power to make them happen. And while you waste your vital force on empty words, real opportunities pass silently by your side. Silence is the laboratory where great decisions are born. It's in silence that you connect dots no one else sees. It's in silence that you hear the market whisper its secrets. It's in silence that you perceive who can really help you and who's just wasting your time. External noise is just noise. Internal noise is desperation. Clarity is born at the intersection of silence and observation. Here's your first practical exercise. For the next 2 weeks, before speaking about money, count to 10. Before giving your financial opinion, ask yourself if it's based on real experience or just theory. Before sharing a business idea, test it in the silence of your own mind. And especially, stop asking for financial approval from people who have never prospered. Profitable silence isn't about being mute. It's about speaking only when your words carry the weight of gold. It's about observing more than opining. It's about listening to opportunities that whisper instead of shouting for attention. It's about understanding that in the multitude of words, sin is not lacking, but in the discipline of silence is born the wisdom that generates wealth. When you stop pouring your thoughts into the air and start cultivating them in silence, something magical happens. You develop what I call financial hearing. You start hearing things others don't hear. The tone of voice of a customer who's ready to buy, the exact moment to make a proposal, the hesitation in someone's speech who wants to sell something urgently, the real confidence behind empty promises. The market speaks, but only to those who know how to listen. Opportunities present themselves, but only to those who aren't too busy talking about themselves. Money flows, but only to those who have created mental space to receive it. And that space is only created in silence. Stop being the first to speak and be the last to decide. Stop explaining your plans and start executing them in silence. Stop asking for approval and start creating results that speak for themselves. Gold doesn't shout, but those who possess it don't need to prove anything to anyone. Law 2. The law of the secret motive. Why do you want to be rich? Don't give me the pretty answer you give others. Don't tell me about financial freedom, about taking care of family, about making a difference in the world. Those are the words you use to convince yourself. I want to know the real reason, the one you hide even from yourself. The one that makes you wake up at dawn checking how much money your acquaintance made on their latest Instagram post. The one that makes you lie about your income. The one that turned your search for prosperity into a silent competition against people who don't even know they're competing. Every way of a man is right in his own eyes, but the Lord weighs the hearts. And this is exactly where most people lose everything before they even begin. They think the problem is in strategy, knowledge, luck, timing. But the real problem is in the invisible foundation, intention. You can have the best technique in the world, but if your motivation is rotten, it will contaminate everything you touch. When God appeared to me that night and said He would give me anything I asked for, anything, I could have asked for enough gold to buy entire nations. I could have asked for a kingdom that stretched to the four corners of the earth. I could have asked for fame that would last millennia. But you know why I didn't ask? Because in that moment of total honesty with myself, I realized that if I asked for wealth's sake, it would become my prison. Imagine a man who plants a tree just to boast about the size of the fruit. He waters with haste, fertilizes with anxiety, prunes with impatience. The tree grows crooked, the fruit is born bitter, and when he finally harvests, he realizes no one wants to eat something that was cultivated just to impress. That's how it is with those who seek money to feed their ego. They might even get the numbers, but wealth born from vanity always tastes like emptiness. I knew kings who had immense treasures but lived tormented by the paranoia of losing them. I saw merchants who accumulated fortunes but couldn't sleep peacefully because every coin was proof that they were worth something. I observed men who built financial empires but destroyed their relationships because they saw people as instruments to generate more profit. Wealth, motivated by emotional lack, is like salt water for someone who's thirsty. The more you drink, the thirstier you get. You make money to feel important, but the importance only lasts while you have money. You accumulate to feel secure, but insecurity grows along with the numbers in your account. You get rich to be loved, but you only attract people interested in your wealth. Here's the truth no one wants to hear. God doesn't deposit large amounts where there's risk of idolatry. He knows that if he gives a lot of money to someone who still worships it, that money will become a false god. And false gods always demand sacrifices that destroy those who serve them. The sacrifice of peace, relationships, health, soul. The turning point in my life came when I stopped asking how much I wanted to earn and started asking why I wanted to earn. Not how much, but why. And when I dove deep into that question, I discovered that my real motivation was pure. I wanted wisdom to govern well the people God had placed under my responsibility. It wasn't about me, it was about them. And it was this purity of intention that opened the floodgates of heaven. You need to understand that the universe has a checking system. Every time you seek something, it analyzes not just what you're asking for, but why you're asking for it. And the response you receive is always aligned with the quality of your motivation. If you seek money to prove something, you'll receive money that proves your inadequacy. If you seek wealth to control others, you'll receive wealth that controls you. If you seek prosperity to escape from who you are, you'll discover that money amplifies exactly who you are. But if you seek resources to serve, to create, to bless, to build something greater than yourself, then wealth itself becomes a channel of blessing. Money stops being your master and becomes your tool. You stop being a slave to the need to impress and become free to impact. Here's the exercise that will change your financial life. Before any important decision about money, stop and ask yourself with total honesty, why am I doing this? Am I seeking validation or real value? Am I trying to fill an emotional void or create something meaningful? Am I competing with someone or building something unique? And be brutally honest with the answers. If you discover your motivation is contaminated by ego, lack, or fear, don't despair. Recognizing is the first step to purifying. You can transform a selfish search into a noble mission. You can transform a need to prove something into a genuine desire to create value. You can transform the fear of not being enough into a determination to become useful. Wealth born from pure motivations not only arrives faster, it also stays longer, because it was built on solid foundations, because it serves a purpose greater than economic ups and downs, because it's aligned with universal laws of prosperity that reward those who sow value and reap abundance. When your motivation purifies, something miraculous happens. You stop chasing money, and it starts chasing you. You stop forcing opportunities, and they start presenting themselves naturally. You stop competing for crumbs and start creating banquets where everyone can feast. Money is neutral, but your intentions aren't, and the universe always responds to your intentions, not your words. You can say you want to get rich to help others, but if your true motivation is to prove you're better than your brother, the universe will respond to the real motivation. And the response will always be more complex and painful than you imagine. Purify your motives, and you'll purify your results. Seek first to be useful, and usefulness will generate reward. Seek first to create value, and value will return multiplied. Seek first to serve something greater than yourself, and something greater than yourself will take care of your prosperity. True wealth isn't a prize for being better than others. It's a responsibility for serving better than others. And that responsibility is only given to those whose hearts are prepared to carry it. Law 3. The law of invisible preparation. You want to reap tomorrow what you didn't plant today. I know because I see this everywhere. People desperate for quick results, skipping essential steps, improvising where they should have planned. You see someone prosperous and think luck knocked on their door. You observe a successful business and imagine it was born overnight. But you don't see the years of silent preparation, the nights of study no one witnessed, the invisible sacrifices that built the foundation of what today you call luck. Prepare your work outside first, then build your house. This is the most violated law of prosperity. Everyone wants to build the house before preparing the field. Everyone wants the result before the process. Everyone wants the harvest before the sowing. And then they wonder why their projects crumble, why their investments fail, why their ideas don't generate the money they imagine. Think of a Gothic cathedral. When you look at it, you see towers that touch the sky, stained glass that filters light like liquid jewels, majesty that inspires worship. But you don't see the foundations that descend meters below the earth. You don't see the years of architectural calculations. You don't see the hundreds of anonymous craftsmen who cut each stone with millimetric precision. The beauty you admire is just the visible part of preparation that lasted decades in the invisible. That's how true wealth is. It doesn't sprout from the ground like a mushroom after rain. It's built brick by brick, decision by decision, discipline by discipline, in a preparation most people don't have the patience to do. And that's why most people live in financial mediocrity, because they want to skip preparation and go straight to celebration. Before building the temple, that would be one of the wonders of the ancient world, I spent years preparing. Not just gathering gold and silver, but studying architecture, understanding materials, developing relationships with the best craftsmen, creating logistic systems. The world saw the temple erected in 7 years, but didn't see the 15 years of preparation that made that speed possible. And here's what most people don't understand. Preparation isn't a waste of time, it's multiplication of time. Every hour you invest preparing is worth 10 hours you'd spend improvising. Every day you spend studying is worth a month you'd spend in trial and error. Every week you dedicate to planning is worth a year you'd waste in desperate attempts. But you live in an age of impatience. You want to start the business before understanding the market. You want to invest before learning about investments. You want to sell before knowing what your customer really needs. And when results don't come, you blame the economy, competition, lack of opportunities. But you never blame lack of preparation. Invisible preparation has layers most people ignore. There's technical preparation, studying, practicing, mastering necessary skills. There's emotional preparation, developing discipline, patience, resistance to frustration. There's spiritual preparation, aligning your values, purifying your motivations, connecting with greater purposes. And there's practical preparation, building relationships, gathering resources, creating systems. I knew merchants who spent years traveling trade routes just observing, learning the customs of different peoples, understanding what each region valued. When they finally opened their businesses, they seemed to have supernatural luck. But it wasn't luck. It was preparation meeting opportunity. And opportunity always exists for those who prepared to recognize it. The turning point in your financial life won't come when you find the perfect strategy. It will come when you accept that you need to prepare before strategies, study before executing, plan before departing. Most people want to accelerate the process, but preparation can't be accelerated without being compromised. It's like trying to accelerate pregnancy. The baby is born in the 9th month, no matter how much hurry you're in. Here's your invisible preparation plan. Before any important financial move, do your homework first. If you want to invest in stocks, study the market for at least 6 months before putting in the first penny. If you want to open a business, spend a year observing the sector, talking to potential customers, testing your ideas on a small scale. If you want to change careers, dedicate at least a year developing the necessary skills. Invisible preparation is invisible precisely because it happens away from the spotlight. You won't get likes for studying. You won't get applause for planning. You won't get recognition for preparing. But when it's time to harvest, you'll be the only one in your generation prepared for the harvest. And understand this: preparation never ends. Even after achieving success in one area, you need to continue preparing for the next levels. What brought you here won't take you there. Each new level requires new preparation. Each new challenge requires new competencies. Each new opportunity requires new preparation. Luck is real, but it has a specific address. It lives at the intersection of preparation and opportunities pass every day through everyone's life. The difference is that only those who prepared can recognize and seize them. Others let luck pass and then complain they never have luck. When you start valuing invisible preparation, your life will change invisibly too. You'll stop being in a hurry and start being effective. You'll stop improvising and start executing. You'll stop hoping for luck and start creating conditions for luck to find you. The field needs to be prepared before the house is built. Foundations need to be dug before walls are raised. The mind needs to be educated before money is conquered. And those who reverse this order always build sandcastles that crumble with the first storm. Prepare in the invisible, and you'll be rewarded in the visible. Invest in the process, and the process will invest in your results. Be faithful in the little of preparation, and you'll be placed over the much of achievement. Law 4. The law of real exchange. You're holding on to money out of fear of losing it, and that's exactly why you're losing money. I know because I've been in that place, counting every penny, calculating every expense, retaining every resource as if it were the last. You think saving is synonymous with hoarding, that keeping is synonymous with hiding, that protecting your money means never letting it go. But here's the truth that will hurt. Stagnant money is dying money, and you're killing your prosperity with your own hands. There is one who scatters and yet increases, and there is one who withholds more than is fitting, but it leads to poverty. This is one of the most counterintuitive laws of prosperity, and it's also one of the most powerful. Money needs to circulate. It was created to flow, not to stagnate. And when you understand this, really understand it, your relationship with wealth changes forever. Imagine a mighty river that feeds an entire region. Its waters irrigate crops, generate energy, sustain life. But if you build a dam and stop the flow, what happens? Upstream, the water accumulates and rots. Downstream, everything dries up and dies. The river only fulfills its purpose when it flows. That's how money is. It only multiplies when it circulates. It only creates value when it moves. It only generates abundance when it's shared intelligently. I discovered this in the most surprising way possible. In the early years of my reign, I retained everything. Every coin that entered the royal treasury stayed there, guarded, protected, preserved. I thought I was being wise, prudent, responsible, but the kingdom's economy began to stagnate. Merchants had fewer resources to invest. Craftsmen received fewer orders. The royal treasury itself, which I protected so much, began to diminish. That's when I learned the difference between spending and investing, between wasting and sowing. I began financing projects that would generate value for the kingdom. I invested in craftsmen who would create unique products. I supported merchants who would expand our trade routes. And something miraculous happened. The more I gave strategically, the more it returned multiplied. The royal treasury not only recovered what it had lost, but grew exponentially. But understand well, I'm not talking about stupid generosity. I'm not saying for you to go around distributing money to anyone who asks. I'm talking about intelligent generosity, relational investment, sowing where there's potential for harvest. There's an abysmal difference between giving to give and giving to generate. Generosity that generates wealth has criteria. First, give to those who can multiply. If you give money to someone who doesn't have financial education, you're throwing it away. If you give to someone who has competence but no resources, you're investing. Second, give to create strategic relationships. Helping influential people when they need it creates loyalties worth more than gold. Third, give to projects that align with your values and objectives. This way you build an ecosystem of prosperity around you. You live in an era where everyone wants to receive, but few want to give. And that's exactly why those who give intelligently stand out so much. When you help someone prosper, you don't lose a competitor, you gain an ally. When you invest in others' success, You don't diminish your chances. You multiply your opportunities. I had an advisor who taught me something I never forgot. Money is like seed. If you eat all the seeds, you won't starve today, but you'll starve tomorrow. If you plant all the seeds, you'll go hungry today, but you'll have abundance tomorrow. But if you know how to balance, eat some and plant others, you'll have sustenance today and prosperity tomorrow. The turning point in my financial life came when I stopped asking how much I could save and started asking how much I should plant. When I stopped thinking only about my comfort and started thinking about my legacy. When I stopped retaining out of fear and started investing out of faith. And here's the part that will challenge your mindset. The moments when I invested most in others were the moments when I profited most. Not by chance, not by luck, but by universal law. What you sow, you reap, and you always reap more than you sow. The question is, are you sowing or just consuming? Here's your practical plan to implement the law of real exchange. Separate every month a percentage of your income not to spend, but to invest in relationships and opportunities. It could be 5%, it could be 10%, but let it be consistent. Use this money to help someone who's building something significant, to invest in someone's business you believe in, to buy from small entrepreneurs who need support, to educate people who have potential but no resources. But remember, it's not charity, it's strategic investment. You're creating a network of people who will remember your generosity when they're in a position to reciprocate. You're planting seeds that will grow into future opportunities. You're building an ecosystem of abundance where everyone prospers, including you. The scarcity mindset says, if I give to you, I'll have less for me. The abundance mindset says, if I help you prosper, we'll both have more. And guess which mindset generates more wealth? The economy isn't a zero-sum game. There isn't a fixed amount of wealth in the world. Wealth can be created, and it's created every time someone generates value for others. When you start practicing strategic generosity, you'll notice almost immediate changes in your life. Doors that were closed will open. Opportunities that seemed impossible will present themselves. People you don't even know will start referring your work. This isn't magic. It's physics, action and reaction. You sow value, you reap multiplied value. And understand this, the law of real exchange doesn't just work with money. It works with knowledge, time, contacts, influence, anything that has value. Share your knowledge, and you'll be seen as an expert. Dedicate your time to help others, and you'll create powerful relationships. Use your influence to promote others, and your influence will grow. The fear of giving is fear of living, because living is exchanging. It's giving and receiving, sowing and reaping, investing and profiting. Those who don't give don't live, they just survive. And survival isn't the standard for those created to prosper. Release money so money can find you. Open your hands so they can fill again. Invest in others so others invest in you. Wealth doesn't come to closed hands. It comes to open hearts that know giving is the smartest way to receive. Law 5, the law of conquest fatigue. You're going to get everything you want and discover it wasn't what you needed. I know because I lived it. I had enough gold to buy entire kingdoms, palaces that made emperors weep with envy, women that poets immortalized in verse, knowledge that made wise men bow before me. Whatever my eyes desired, I did not keep from them. I did not withhold my heart from any pleasure. But when I looked at all I had accomplished, at all the work my hands had done, behold, all was vanity and striving after wind. This is the cruelest law of prosperity. You can gain everything and lose yourself. You can conquer the whole world and discover your inner world has become a desert. You can succeed in all the metrics society considers important and fail in the only metric that really matters: inner peace. You're chasing financial goals as if they were the solution to all your problems. You believe that when you reach your first million, you'll be happy. When you buy your dream house, you'll be fulfilled. When you drive your dream car, you'll be respected. But I'm here to tell you a truth that will hurt. Conquest without purpose is the most sophisticated prison that exists. Imagine a man who dedicated his entire life to climbing a mountain. He trained for years, invested fortunes in equipment, sacrificed relationships, gave up precious moments with family. And finally, after decades of effort, he reaches the top. But when he looks around, he realizes he climbed the wrong mountain. The view is beautiful, but empty. The conquest is real, but meaningless. And now he's alone at the top of a mountain he should never have climbed. I lived this multiplied by 1,000. I built the most magnificent temple in history, but discovered that God doesn't dwell in temples made by human hands. I accumulated wisdom that made kings travel months just to hear one word from me, but discovered that all human wisdom is foolishness before eternity. I had women from all nations, but discovered that pleasure without love is emptiness, that no amount of pleasure can fill. The problem wasn't in the conquests. The problem was in the motivation behind the conquests. I was seeking satisfaction in things that were never created to satisfy. I was looking for meaning in achievements that are just means, not ends. I was trying to fill a spiritual void with material conquests. And you're doing the same thing. You're trying to solve internal problems with external solutions. You're trying to cure insecurity with money, loneliness with conquests, lack of purpose with more goals. But here's the truth. No matter how much money you make, if you don't know why you're making it, it will never be enough. No matter how many goals you achieve, if they're not connected to a greater purpose, each conquest will just be another item on an empty list. Conquest fatigue doesn't come from the effort to conquer. It comes from discovering you conquered the wrong things for the wrong reasons. It comes from realizing you spent your entire life running in a direction that took you away from where you really wanted to arrive. It comes from the brutal understanding that you traded your soul for things that weren't worth a penny of your soul. But here's the turning point. Conquest fatigue can be your salvation. It can be the moment when you stop chasing more and start seeking better. It can be when you stop asking how much you can gain and start asking what you want to gain for. It can be when you realize that wealth without purpose is disguised poverty. When I began questioning my conquests, when I began feeling the emptiness behind all the abundance, that's when I discovered what really matters. It's not what you have, it's who you become in the process of conquering. It's not how much you accumulate, it's how much you impact. It's not the size of your wealth, it's the size of your legacy. You need to align your financial ambitions with eternal purposes. You need to connect your material goals with spiritual missions. You need to understand that money is a powerful means, but a terrible end. When you make money the objective, it becomes your master. When you make purpose the objective and money the tool, you become master of your destiny. Here's your alignment exercise. Before defining your next financial goal, first define what you want that money for. Not just what you'll buy, but what problem you'll solve, what life you'll impact, what legacy you'll build. If your financial goal isn't connected to a purpose that transcends yourself, you're preparing for conquest fatigue. And understand this, purpose doesn't necessarily mean saving the world. It can be as simple as creating a dignified life for your family, transmitting solid values to your children, being an example of integrity at work. What matters isn't the size of the purpose, it's its authenticity. It's being aligned with who you really are and who you want to become. Money amplifies who you are. If you're empty inside, money will amplify your emptiness. If you're stingy, money will amplify your stinginess. If you're insecure, money will amplify your insecurity. But if you have purpose, if you have solid values, if you have a clear mission, money will amplify that too. I discovered too late that the only wealth that satisfies is that which serves something greater than ourselves. The only conquest worth it is one that brings us closer to who we were created to be. The only success that doesn't generate fatigue is one aligned with our eternal purpose. Don't make my mistake. Don't spend your entire life conquering the wrong things. Don't trade your soul for gold that rusts. Don't sacrifice your purpose for empty conquests. Seek first meaning, and meaningful conquests will come as a consequence. Conquest fatigue is avoidable, but only if you conquer the right things for the right reasons. Only if you understand that wealth without purpose is disguised misery. Only if you realize the question isn't how much you can have, but what you want to have for. Conquer with purpose, and your conquests will have purpose. Get rich with meaning, and your wealth will make sense. Live for something greater than yourself, and your life will be greater than any material conquest. Law 6. The law of sacred flow. You're trying to prosper without honoring the one who created prosperity. I know because I tried that too. At the height of my wealth, I began believing my intelligence was sufficient, that my strategy was infallible, that my success depended only on me. And it was exactly when I stopped honoring God with my goods that my prosperity began transforming into prison. It was when I treated money as God that it became my demon. Honor the Lord with your wealth and with the first fruits of all your produce. Then your barns will be filled with plenty, and your vats will be bursting with wine. This isn't a conditional promise. It's a universal law. When you align your prosperity with divine principles, you're not just being religious, you're being intelligent. You're cooperating with the laws that govern true wealth. Think of a river that follows its natural course. It winds around stones, descends slopes, feeds vegetation, generates life wherever it passes. But when you try to force the river against its nature, when you build dams that block its flow, when you pollute its waters with greed, the river rebels. It overflows, destroys, causes more damage than benefit. That's how wealth is. When it flows according to eternal principles, it generates life. When it flows against those principles, it generates destruction. I discovered this the most painful way possible. At the beginning of my reign, everything I touched prospered because I recognized that my wisdom and wealth came from God. I sought first His kingdom and His righteousness, and all other things were added to me. But as my wealth grew, my humility diminished. I began believing my own propaganda. I began thinking I was the one controlling everything. And then things began getting out of control. The same businesses that once prospered began showing losses. The same relationships that once strengthened me began weakening me. The same wealth that once gave me freedom began enslaving me. Because when you stop honoring God with your goods stop honoring you. But understand well, honoring God with your goods doesn't just mean tithing at church. It means recognizing that everything you have comes from Him and should be used according to His principles. It means treating employees with justice, doing business with integrity, using influence to bless, not exploit. It means being a steward, not an absolute owner. The difference between a steward and an owner is profound. The owner thinks he can do whatever he wants with what he possesses. The steward understands he's caring for something that belongs to another and will give account of how he cared for it. When you understand your wealth is stewardship, not ownership, everything changes. You stop being a slave to money and become its administrator. The sacred flow of prosperity has a specific direction, from God to you, from you to others, from others back to you multiplied. But many break this flow. Some stop at the first stage. They receive from God but don't pass it on. Others stop at the second. They give to others but don't recognize the original source. Others still don't even begin. They try to generate wealth by methods that go against divine principles. Here's the truth that revolutionized my life. God doesn't have a problem with you being rich. He has a problem with wealth being you. He doesn't oppose your prosperity. He opposes prosperity being your God. He doesn't want you to be poor. He wants you to be free. And freedom means having resources without being dominated by them. The turning point in my spiritual and financial journey came when I returned to honoring God practically with my goods, not just with words or rituals, but with concrete actions. I began separating the first part of every income, not the last. I began making decisions based on principles, not just profit. I began seeing every transaction as an opportunity to demonstrate character. And something miraculous happened. When I returned to honoring God with my goods, My goods returned to honoring me. Opportunities that had dried up began flowing again. Relationships that had deteriorated were restored. The wisdom that had become clouded became crystal clear again. Because when you align with divine principles, the universe itself conspires in your favor. But I must warn you, honoring God with your goods sometimes means giving up easy profits. It means refusing opportunities that would compromise your integrity. It means choosing what's right instead of what's convenient. And in the short term, this may seem like it's costing you money. But in the long term, it always pays back multiplied. Here's your plan to activate sacred flow. First, recognize that everything you have is a gift. Your intelligence, your opportunities, your ability to work, everything comes from God. Second, separate a percentage of every income to honor Him. It could be 10%, it could be more, but let it be consistent and priority. Third, make financial decisions based on eternal principles, not just temporary gains. And understand this, when you honor God with your goods, you're not losing money. You're investing in the source of all money. You're not diminishing your wealth, you're purifying it. You're not limiting your prosperity, you're freeing it from limitations you didn't even know existed. The sacred flow of prosperity operates by laws that transcend human economic laws. It works by principles that were established before financial markets existed. That's why people who honor these principles prosper even in crises, while others who ignore these principles fail even in times of plenty. When you try to build wealth without recognizing God, it's like trying to build a house without foundation. It might work for a while, but when life storms come, everything crumbles. But when you build your prosperity on eternal principles, you're building on rock. It might shake, but it doesn't fall. God wants to prosper you, but He wants to prosper you the right way. He wants to give you resources, but He wants you to use them wisely. He wants to bless you financially, but He wants that blessing to be a channel of blessing to others. Because true prosperity isn't just about having more, it's about being more. Sacred flow isn't religion, it's reality. It's not superstition, it's spiritual science. It's not limitation, it's liberation. When you align your pursuit of wealth with divine principles, you don't limit your potential, you multiply it infinitely. Honor God with your goods, and He will honor you with goods that cannot be stolen, lost, or destroyed. Treat money as a sacred tool, and it will behave sacredly in your life. Be faithful in the little that comes from above, and the much that comes from above will be placed in your hands. Law 7. The law of the last place. You're comparing your journey with others' destinations, and that comparison is killing your prosperity. I know because I see this everywhere. People desperate because they haven't arrived where they wanted at the age they expected. Bitter because others seem to have success faster. Frustrated because their time hasn't come yet. But you don't understand that being in last place today might mean being prepared for first place tomorrow. That your delay might be divine protection. That your lateness might be preparation for something greater than you imagine. Better is the end of a thing than its beginning. This is one of the hardest truths to accept in an age of instant gratification. Everyone wants quick results, early success, immediate recognition. But I learned that the best conquests are those that take time to mature, that the most solid wealth is built slowly, that the most lasting successes are born from what seems to be temporary failure. Think of an oak tree and a bamboo tree planted on the same day. The bamboo grows visibly in a matter of weeks, impresses everyone with its speed, draws attention for its quickness. But the oak spends years apparently still, just developing deep roots no one sees. And when it finally starts growing, it doesn't stop. 1,000 years later, the bamboo has died and been replaced hundreds of times, but the oak is still there, majestic, unshakable, providing shade for generations. You want to be bamboo, but God is making you oak. You want speed, but He's giving you solidity. You want to impress now, but He's preparing you to last forever. And while you complain about the delay, He's building something in you that can't be shaken by the storms that are coming. I spent years being prepared in anonymity before becoming king. Years studying, observing, learning, being tested in small responsibilities before receiving the great ones. And in those years of silent preparation, I wondered why God was taking so long, why others seemed to have success earlier, why my time never came. But now I understand those years weren't wasted time, they were invested time. They weren't delay, they were preparation. They weren't punishment, they were protection. Because if I had received power and wealth before being prepared to handle them, they would have destroyed me. God's timing isn't just about when you're ready to receive, it's about when you're ready to maintain. Last place has advantages that those in first don't have. Those behind can observe the mistakes of those in front. They can learn from others' stumbles. They can build better strategies. They can develop humility that those who never failed don't have. Last place is the best leadership school that exists. And here's something no one tells you. Many who are in first place today got there through shortcuts that don't sustain. They skipped essential steps, compromised values for speed, sacrificed depth for appearance. And when real pressures come, when storms arrive, they crumble because they don't have internal structure to support the weight of success. But you who are being prepared in last place are developing spiritual muscles others don't have. You're learning persistence in difficulty. You're developing character in adversity. You're building faith in invisibility. And when your time comes, when God decides to exalt you, you'll have the internal structure necessary to sustain what He's going to give you. The turning point in your mindset about timing happens when you stop seeing your process as delay and start seeing it as preparation. When you stop envying others' success and start trusting God's plan for you. When you stop being in a hurry and start having faith, because hurry is a sign of distrust. Faith is the ability to wait without hopelessness. God has perfect timing for your life. He knows exactly when you'll be ready for each level of responsibility and prosperity. He knows the traps you don't see yet. He sees the storms that haven't arrived yet. And He protects you from premature success as much as He protects you from permanent failure. Here's your exercise in aligning with divine timing. Stop comparing your speed with others. Each person has a unique calling, unique preparation, unique timing. What matters isn't when you arrive, but how you arrive. It's not being first to leave the starting line, but being last to give up the race. Be faithful in the little that's in your hands today. If you have a small business, be the best at that small business. If you have small influence, use that influence with integrity. If you have small resources, manage them wisely, because whoever is faithful in little will be put in charge of much, and whoever is unfaithful in little isn't prepared for much. Last place is temporary for those with character. First place is temporary for those without character. The difference isn't in speed, it's in solidity. It's not in talent, it's in persistence. It's not in luck, it's in preparation meeting opportunity at the right timing. And understand this, when God decides to open a door in your life, no one can close it. When He decides to exalt you, no one can bring you down. When He decides to prosper you, no one can impoverish you. What matters isn't human speed, it's God's decision. And God is never late, He just arrives at the right time. There are people being prepared in silence for positions that don't even exist yet. There are businesses being gestated in the invisible that will revolutionize entire sectors. There are riches being prepared for people who don't even know they'll receive them. And many of these people are exactly those who today feel delayed, forgotten, left behind. Today's last place can be tomorrow's first place. Today's humiliation can be preparation for tomorrow's exaltation. Today's anonymity can be the secret to tomorrow's influence. Because God exalts the humble and humbles the proud. He lifts up the downtrodden and brings down the lofty. He chooses the weak things of the world to confound the strong. Trust the process. Trust the timing. Trust the God who knows exactly what He's doing in your life. Your time will come. Your opportunity will appear. Your prosperity will flourish. And when it happens, you'll understand why you had to wait. You'll thank for the delay. You'll celebrate the preparation that seemed like punishment. Last place is just a temporary position for eternal souls. And eternal souls were made for eternal destinies that are worth any temporal weight. These 7 laws aren't theory. They're scars from a man who had everything and almost lost his soul in the process. They're the distillation of a lifetime of triumphs and failures, hits and painful mistakes. Each law costs something to be learned. And now, I deliver them to you, like a father delivers his testament to his son. You have a choice to make. You can continue living as you lived before, chasing money without direction, accumulating without purpose, running after numbers that will never fill the real void. Or you can embrace these laws and discover that true wealth is much more than quantity in a bank account. It's inner freedom, outer impact, eternal legacy. Imagine a small seed buried in dark earth. For months, no one sees progress. For entire seasons, it seems nothing is happening. But down there, in the invisible, roots are deepening, structure is being built, life is being prepared. And when it finally sprouts, it doesn't stop growing. It becomes a tree that feeds generations, that offers shade in times of scorching sun, that remains firm when storms come. You are that seed. These laws are the fertile soil. The time to come is harvest season, but germination begins now, with a decision. The decision to plant your life in soil that produces eternal fruit, not just temporary profits. If these words touch something deep inside you, if you recognized you're ready for a real transformation in your relationship with prosperity, subscribe to this channel. Because this is just the first conversation of many we need to have. There are deeper layers of wisdom waiting for those truly committed to change. The wealth God wants to give you doesn't fit in a single conversation. It reveals itself in layers, to hearts ready to receive it without being corrupted. And I'll be here, sharing with you each revelation, each secret, each principle I learned on the longest and most rewarding path a man can walk. You didn't come here by accident. This meeting was scheduled before you were born. These words were prepared for this moment in your life. And now that they've been planted, they'll grow inside you, transforming not just how you make money, but how you live life. The gold you seek is already inside you. These laws just teach how to extract it.